Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Joe Bet, you, everybody else. Okay. Renat and is reading off. We presume Renat is reading off. Then Senator Moss will speak. Then I presume Senator Curry. Then Joe Beth. Sorry, Senator Joe Beth Colby. There, Colby.
You before Anna or after? She's gonna go after you. Or you?
Okay. What we're gonna do is it's not about Senator Thompson is asking me to inform that so we'll do right now. Thank
Okay. You ready, Dr. Senator Dava? You ready? Okay. 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 Just a few words before we begin our agenda.
Yeah, could you just communicate to see your leader? It's just been drawn to my attention that the Minister of State has the 3 o'clock flight. So what I propose is that we continue through the lunch break, right? But should he decide that he wants to speak, although he has indicated that he will speak in the stages of the bill, should he decide if he wants to, we should let him know that that's what we're going to do, and that we're trying to finish for 3 o'clock. We're going to see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, some people may be short, and I'm sure Senator Colby Davis won't be short, but we understand. Okay. Thank you very much, acting head over there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, all colleagues.
Okay. Are we ready to start, senators? I hear a whole lot of comments about a whole lot of things. Let me just start with the fact that we will be having lunch today. It doesn't matter what time you eat it. It's being provided.
Well, let me on behalf of all senators, Madam President, thank you for your generous provision.
You're welcome. Trust me, we have about 10, 11, 12 months to go. This is it. So this has to last. Okay. And just as we begin, I just want to say that we do have a whole lot of speakers today, and we've just gone through everybody's very tight schedule outside of Senate business. So allow the speaker to speak unless it is something that is significantly controversial. Let us not keep interrupting, and so that we will get through this process this morning. Okay, on our agenda, we have minutes or continuation, right? As many. We will recognize Senator Henfield.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, fellow Bahamians. Permit me, Madam President, to begin by saying thank you and encouraging everybody under the sound of my voice to be thankful. Thankful for life, thankful for adversity, thankful for rejection, thankful to God. Madam President, I believe adversity builds patience and character. The rejection is never a bad thing. It's often simply redirection. This is a season, Madam President, where I speak to that in which many who had planned to get in the race were not invited to the draft event. But I say, be thankful. Nothing is before its time. And if you are committed to improving the lives of our people, your work must continue. Show up to the team practice, work out with the team, help train who's running the race, and practice the baton exchange. Madam President, the budget debates are the most politically charged and, to my mind, the most divisive periods during any term in office for politicians. But I remind our colleagues of two things. One, Parliament is for debate. It's not for singing kumbaya. So I come prepared to argue a point, add value, offer my recommendations, and to do so relentlessly. Secondly, as national leaders, Madam President, we do not have the luxury of simply being opinionated. We must be informed, inspirational, and responsible for our utterances. Madam President, I now kick off the debate on day 2 in hopes that I may set the tone for the remainder of the debate, or at least the next hour or two. Madam President, on Monday, the Caribbean Parliament, its House of Commons and Senate, jointly hosted the Caribbean Parliaments in a conference on countering disinformation. Out of the 35 parliaments in the organization, they chose the Bahamas to chair the session. And I would like to publicly thank you, Madam President, and the clerk for facilitating the use of the Senate for the same. As the chair of the session, Canada said I had free will to set the tone of the meeting. No cautions from Prime Minister Trudeau, no cautions from the Honorable Speaker Rota or the Honorable Senator and Speaker Temporary Ringette. I opened with a quote, Madam President, right from this chamber from one Newton Lee. And I began by sharing, information is power, and disinformation is an abuse of power. And I'm going to repeat that. Information is power, and disinformation is an abuse of power. Madam President, what then is disinformation? It is the dissemination of incorrect information and propaganda with the intent and the effect to mislead the population. At the end of that conference on Monday, Madam President, out of the 17 countries in attendance, we all agreed that disinformation was a threat to our democracy, disinformation was a threat to governance, and that disinformation was a threat to public order, and that our people had a right to correct information. Madam President, a few days ago, I received a voice note, as I am sure most of you did, with the voice of a Bahamian male saying that he went to the grocery store and that the grocery stores were closing because Bahamians were not taking the vaccine. I hear around the table and any number of persons saying they heard that too. Madam President, that ought to be criminal. The AG is under the sound of my voice, Madam President. Disinformation ought to be criminal. Next year, when elections are held, laws should already be in place to criminalize creating and disseminating disinformation. Madam President, similarly, for anyone to get before any of these microphones and any of these cameras and say the government has done nothing of substance for the Bahamian people, that utterance is disinformation and abuse of power. The correct information is this, that in a matter of months, cruises will set sail on our waters throughout our islands and US dollars will flow directly into the hands of family island communities. That is substantial, progressive, and powerful. Hotel occupancies will skyrocket, taxis will be overbooked, Airbnbs will be in demand, airports will be crowded with the necessary safety protocols, and Bahamian husbands and fathers, single mothers, will be taking home more money than ever before. The Bahamas is set to become the Tesla or Bitcoin of the tourism nations. But if elections are called before the rewards are reaped, Madam President, if elections are called before the rewards are reaped, Madam President, the PLP may ride on the wave of behold that which the PLP has made happen. Madam President, in a matter of months, overflight fees from every airline flying over the Bahamas will begin to roll in. I reported recently that the U.S. collected some $841 million in recent years for managing our airspace. That revenue is in motion to come to the Bahamas. But if elections are called, the rewards may be reaped after the elections, and the PLP may claim, behold that which the PLP has made happen. Give me a signal if I can move past this point of the election being next year. Madam President, I listened attentively yesterday to the Minister of State for Finance. I would like to think that he knows I am pulling for him, rooting for him, praying for him, and that he has my full support. In fact, I vindicated to colleagues and persons in the public that I will be campaigning for Senator Thompson in East Grand Bahama. Madam President, he somehow manages to look out for the entire Bahamas while remaining incomparably committed to protecting and empowering Grand Bahamians. I suspect the young man that I consider, and the Honorable Minister of State, the guardian of Grand Bahamians, will do well in the next term. With that little bit of humor and prophecy, Madam President, permit me to focus my contribution on two of the Ministry of Finance's goals. There is a quote that reads, "A goal should scare you a little and excite you a lot." The quote reads, "A goal should scare you a little and excite you a lot." Madam President, I know the Minister of Finance can hear me, so I'll direct my contributions specifically to you as I ought to, in hopes that he jots down a few of the recommendations, starting with one that I believe will raise $25 million annually from Family Island developments, which if you turn to page 17 of the mid-year budget performance, you'd realize that would more than cover the local government expenses of $13 million. Again, a goal should scare you a little and excite you a lot. Madam President, on page 2 of the mid-year budget performance, it lists the goals of the Ministry of Finance. I will read the first one for the benefit of our fellow Bahamians listening. It is to develop policies and manage resources to maximize sustainable socio-economic growth and stability. All those fancy words simply translate to introducing policies to improve the people's quality of life and ensuring growth in their social status and maintaining it. Madam President, on any number of occasions, I have indicated that to improve the quality of life of Bahamians, we have to provide 3 things. Access to quality education, which has been started. Access to capital, which has been started. And access to land, which has been started. And I said started and not done, Madam President, because on the educational front, we still have not introduced money management and business management or nationhood into our curriculum. So while we are now moving to free tertiary education, I believe we need to start even sooner. Teaching at the primary level and the high school level, money management and business management to our people. I said started and not completed on access to capital because I recall in my 2017 inaugural speech proposing that we introduce a crowdfunding platform for Bahamians to access capital. I pounded on this table yesterday when the Minister of State indicated that the crowdfunding legislation is on its way. So the Small Business Development Center is a great start, Madam President. But the crowdfunding legislation will be the Tesla initiative for socio-economic growth for Bahamians. On the land ownership front, Madam President, I said we've started because the Affordable Homes Act is transformative. But what I have next will be the Tesla of Bahamian empowerment, land ownership, and family island development. Madam President, the first recommendation then to the Minister of State for Finance is this. 1, that we identify 5,000 acres of land in Grand Bahama, Madam President, away from the ocean and the swamps. We identify 5,000 acres in Andros, away from the ocean and away from the swamps. That via an online platform, we allow Bahamian entrepreneurs to submit a valid passport and pay an annual lease fee of $5,000 for an acre, whether they can pay via credit card or a debit card, but that these 5,000 acres be zoned and divided for agriculture or an agricultural district, an educational district, a commercial district, a recycling district, a manufacturing district, and a residential district. In the first phase or rollout, my proposal is that we allow 1 acre per person. 5,000 acres at $5,000 annually raises $25 million, Madam President. My recommendation is that there be no VAT in that zone. It's nothing unusual. We've already introduced special economic zones. My recommendation is that there be no real property tax. Nothing new. Bahamians don't pay real property tax in the family islands. My recommendation is that there be no import duties for construction materials, equipment, or vehicles to be used in that district. Nothing new. Things we've done before, Madam President. But what will happen is that in less than a year, we would have made land ownership for entrepreneurs reachable, attainable at $5,000 per year. We would have then created a packaging and export facility in Andros. We would have created residential and commercial rental complexes, or created the policy, the framework for Bahamians to go over to Andros and on these 5,000 acres, begin residential developments, commercial complexes, hydro aquaponic farms. I'd recommend even boarding schools can be done in Andros. There can be theme parks in Andros, a tourist attraction for persons to go over to Andros. We've been Nassau-centric too long. There can be manufacturing facilities on these acreage of land. There can be assembly plants, and there can be breweries there in Andros. Madam President, after the 5,000 acres are leased at the $5,000 per acre, bringing in $25 million per year, which, as I indicated earlier, pursuant to page 17, would cover the $13 million allocated for local government. We can then move over with this initiative to Grand Bahama. From Grand Bahama, we can then go over to Abaco. And the point is that we would have created the policy and the avenue for thousands of Bahamian entrepreneurs to get started on a business venture. The only restriction I would have, Madam President, is that if we go live with this platform on December 1st of 2021, that we have a condition that construction begin by May 1st, 2022. So at $5,000 an acre, Bahamians can get together, acquire an acre of land in Andros, and go ahead and commence construction of a manufacturing facility, an assembly plant, a packaging facility, a building to house a boarding school, for instance. $5,000 an acre is attainable for a young Bahamian entrepreneur, Madam President. Madam President, I'm a firm believer that one of the biggest impediments to our family islands development has been central government. The Ministry of Finance's goal reads, develop policies to maximize sustainable socio-economic growth and stability. I urge the government to put the policies in place and get the hell out of the way of commerce. Madam President, the second goal of the Ministry of Finance I will speak to is to collaborate with the private sector to improve the ease of doing business and facilitate private sector involvement in economic development. Again, because I went to the University of Wolf Road and East Street, those words simply mean that the Ministry of Finance wants to see businesses take a leading role in making doing business easier and have the business community take on more involvement in the economy's direction. Madam President, my recommendations are thus. First, I recommend that the government of the Bahamas outsource vehicle licensing and inspection to accredited auto dealers and repair shops, as is done in the UK, Dubai, and other parts of the world. So your places like AID, BMW on Shirley Street, Sandpit, and in Grand Bahama, whichever dealerships and repair shops you have that will then be accredited by the relevant ministry should be able to go ahead and license and inspect vehicles. The government would still receive its payments online. Persons would be paying their fees to the government online, and it would decrease the government's expenditure in that whole process of license and inspecting. It would improve the ease of doing business with license and inspecting your vehicles. If we can get our driver's license online, NIV online, we should be able to license and inspect our vehicles online. We're taking our car to a reputable dealership in our communities or islands. Secondly, Madam President, the business of process servers need to be formally established. The business of process servers needs to be formally established. Magistrates Court, Madam President, have on average, just in New Providence, 12,500 to 14,000 cases filed annually. It costs $2 to file a summons. That's all, $2. So the government's revenue for all of those magistrate court actions you see going on is $25,000. That's unbelievable when you factor in the cost of operating the magistrate's court. The police officers that serve the summons charge on average $50 to $100 to serve the summons. And we all know in the country that the police officers are who's serving the summons and being paid to serve the summons. Madam President, my recommendation, and I point out before I make my recommendation, that the police cannot service the demand. They cannot meet the demand for 12,500 summons to be served in Nassau by the magistrate's court. And I'm talking about the civil court. I'm not even talking about the family court. I'm not talking about Supreme Court proceedings either. I would recommend, Madam President, licensing at least 250 persons to become process servers, which simply means, and I say simply because I've been practicing as an attorney now for 18 years, amending the legislation to permit process servers to be business ventures, entities, individuals that are being trained and licensed to serve court proceedings. You see, when a police officer or police officers serve the 12,500 summons, if they can, the government doesn't collect back from that. That's a service. When I prepare the summons for those 12,500 persons, the government, my service of preparation, my service of appearance. But the police officer is serving that summons, and the government isn't getting VAT for that average $50 to $100 that he's making. And I'm saying we should move forward with creating a whole industry for 250 Bahamians, at least, to be able to go ahead and have a job, have a profession, and serve 12,500 summons for the magistrate court alone, and the 7,500 plus for the Supreme Court. So we're looking at 20,000 cases per year, Madam President, at $100 per summons. So you're talking about $2 million for those 250 people to share in. So immediately we are able to create 250 new jobs, new businesses. And these persons are able to make $2 million annually. And then the government will then collect its 12% VAT on the $100 they charge us in the law firms for serving the summons, because right now when a law firm hires the police to serve a summons, the police don't charge VAT. So there's a trade there, there's commerce, and the government doesn't benefit at all. But we could go and formalize and create 250 jobs by May. Allow these people to rake in the $2 million per year, and then the government get its 12% of that in VAT. The interesting thing, Madam President, is that, and I've agitated for this before, and I will do so again today, as we look for revenue. And my mind is not problem-oriented, it's solution-oriented. While we're looking for revenue, I've indicated before, it's $2 to file a summons. There's no reason that fee should not be $50 to $100. And when I serve a summons for these 12,500 clients, I pay a one-time $50 or $100 to the government. And that covers my affidavit of service filing fees. That covers my judgment summons filing fees. That covers me paying to file the order one time, up front. But the government can't lose, because it then means those 12,500 litigants would have paid upfront $50. Should they settle their case before court? The government had made it millions of dollars. You see? So the government would be collecting VAT from the process servers, who would also need a business license. So there's business license fees. I've already indicated it's a $2 million minimum industry. But it's really more than 2 million, Madam President. Because we all, those of us in law know, when we serve the originating summons, that's only the beginning of a matter. We still got to send the process server back with an affidavit. We got to send the process server back with a notice of hearing or a summons for the court date. We got to serve the order. So that $2 million the process servers would make is actually threefold. It can turn into $6 million, which then means the government is getting VAT. Every time they make $1 million, the government will collect VAT. Yeah. I will just refresh everyone's memory on why I'm agitating for these two particular things. It's because the goal of the Ministry of Finance says, collaborate with the private sector to improve the ease of doing business and facilitate private sector involvement in economic development. Madam President, the third and final recommendation I will have: legalize the hemp, cannabis, marijuana industry and tax it. Legalize the cannabis, hemp, marijuana industry and tax it. My recommendation remains that we follow the Ontario model. Rather than Tom, Dick, and Harry growing all over the place and you can't regulate the strains and the quality of what they're growing, have one facility that cultivates for the government. And as with Ontario, everybody in the cannabis, hemp, marijuana industry who has a byproduct, whether they're doing the oils, the edibles, the rolls, the CBD oil, buy from the government entity. So the government is selling, the government is making its VAT. You then have your business license. You're also charging, that store is charging VAT. And it's just win, win, win all around, but it's proper regulation with one entity growing, as opposed to Tom, Dick, and Harry growing all over this country with different strains, different grades, etc. But legalize it and tax it. If you can grow broccoli, you can grow cabbage, you can grow marijuana, hemp. It's a business opportunity for this country in the millions to billions of dollars. And I'm not interested in the persons who want a recreational smoke. I'm talking about the textile industry from the hemp. People are making clothes and rugs from the hemp. I'm talking about the industrial industry. The strongest concrete in the world is made from hemp. That's where the money is, you know. Not in the recreational. The money is in the medicinal, the textile, and the industrial industries. And I think it is time we stop talking and Cabinet make its pronouncement that we are going to legalize and tax this thing and allow Bahamians to reap the rewards of this industry safely regulated. Finally, I will share today something that many may not like. Local government turned 25 years. That was the communication from the Minister of Local Government. I don't celebrate it, Madam President, because local government at 25 years old in this country is an adult, but yet it is still waiting for an allowance from central government. At 25 years old, local government should be made to take care of itself, and it can. It does not need to be a burden to central government, Minister Folks. It can take care of itself. We need to reform local government the way Jamaica did in 2015, the way Trinidad did, and it is able to raise revenue and take care of itself. It's 25 years old. We as Bahamians do not intend to take care of our 25-year-old children. This FM administration, 25 years ago, this FM party, 25 years ago, created local government, gave birth to this child who is now 25 years old, and you are still giving it an allowance. It is time local government be reformed and able to take care of itself and not tax this country further. Additionally, Madam President, our state-owned enterprises are no different. Bahamas Air is I am touching it, Bahamas Air remains a teenager that we are taking care of. No different from local government. We are pouring money out for this creation, this teenager, when it ought to be an adult, unable to take care of itself. That is how I see it. And my recommendation and my research today is, I've looked at Caribbean Airlines. Trinidad would have sold off its planes in return for 12.5% of Caribbean Airlines. It is time we do away with Bahamas Air, Madam President. And it may be that we meet with Caribbean Airlines and we say, listen, this is our fleet. We want 25%. On this fleet, we have shares and a say. And this fleet now is based with the headquarters as it is in Kingston and Port of Spain, the headquarters in Nassau as well. And that we own 25%. But we cannot continue to take care of this adult as if it's a teenager, giving an allowance to the detriment of our public finances. It is time. So to recap, Madam President, I recommend leasing 5,000 acres to Bahamians at $5,000 annually, no duty, no VAT, no real property tax, bonded vehicles and items. I would then raise $25 million annually in a major family island being Andros. I recommend once those 5,000 acres are sold and under development, with the condition that construction begin within a year, that we move over to Grand Bahama, we do the same. That we go from Grand Bahama to Abaco, and we do the same. And we move around and develop our family islands as they pay for their own development, as we empower thousands of Bahamian entrepreneurs to create businesses, to create jobs, and do more than work for somebody, but own an industry. And all of these recommendations are pursuant to the ministry's goals to develop policies and manage resources to maximize sustainable socio-economic growth and stability. Socio-economic growth means you're going to move your people from lower class to middle class and middle class to wealthy. And the way to do it is educate them, access to capital, give them land, let them become entrepreneurs. Secondly, Madam President, in my recap, we need to outsource the licensing and inspection of vehicles to accredited auto dealers, with Bahamians being made to pay online for their vehicle licensing and inspection and be directed to a reputable auto dealer or repair shop in their vicinity where they can go to have it licensed and inspected, having paid the government its fee online. So technically, the government will simply just be reaping in the benefits financially without the headache of doing it. That's the best business model. If I can make money without doing work and little expenditure, that's the best business model. And I believe that's where we need to head with licensing and inspecting our vehicles. Again, I fully support introducing a process server industry, creating 250 jobs out the gate, allowing those persons on an annual basis to make $6 million minimum. And the government gets its business licensing fees from those 250 people. The government then gets its 12% VAT on the $6 million that they will raise. I recommend, as an attorney, increasing the magistrate court ceiling yet again to $20,000. They will then increase that $12,500 count exponentially, which then increases the process server, which then increases the filing fees, the revenue from filing fees, and increases VAT revenue. I hear the AG saying that's what he'll do. I would love to have a timeline to know when it will be done. I will yield.
Yeah. I appreciate the passion of my learned friend and the distinguished senator. I think, as I've said in this place before, I have sat with His Honor, the Chief Justice Sir Brian Murray, we discussed this matter specifically, and we both agreed that the ceiling should be raised to $20,000. We hope to have that done so soon as we get through all of the this budget period, this particular debate. We will look at it and see how we can implement it. Okay, I think there need to be a slight amendment to some legislation. We will bring that forward soonest. I assure you that this, and quite frankly, I've been around some years. This has been discussed for decades now.
Okay, good.
We will make it happen.
Yeah. That's great news, Madam President. And again, I believe the focus has to be how do we increase revenue? And that is exactly what will be done. We will increase commerce, increase revenue, with no increase in expenditure whatsoever. None whatsoever. We have more than capable magistrates who can decide on matters that come before them for $5,000 if they have for years, or $20,000. It is the basis of law, and that's why they're there. So I welcome the Attorney General's confirmation that that amendment will come and that we'll move in that direction. So the process service creates hundreds of jobs. The lease of the 5,000 acres in Andros will create any number of industry, 5,000 entrepreneurs who will then have to hire contractors to build, persons to operate their businesses, etc. It'll create commerce in the family islands. And to the Minister of Finance, I will say, we as a people have depended so much on the US dollar. But I believe the Bahamian dollar and the Bahamian people have proven in this last year that there's money, there's big dollars in this country that can circulate and sustain this economy. And I believe it is time that we find ways to draw it out. And to my mind, that means government, as the goal says, needs to put policies in place and get out the way and allow commerce to expand. So finally, Madam President, I support the midterm budget. I lend my support to the compendium of legislations. Additionally, Madam President, there's any number of speculations out there. Let me confirm one thing. I will be back next term as the Minister of Local Government and People Empowerment, and I look forward to continuing these provocative national debates with Senator Mitchell and Senator Darville in opposition. And as they are there in opposition, and I am the Minister of Local Government and People Development, I want you to know that Grand Bahama and the Family Islands and our people will be in good hands. Minister Folks, help is on the way. Madam President, may the Commonwealth of the Bahamas continue to be blessed.
Senator Henfield, I would like to suggest that you include one of our southern islands, rather than just the north, in this process. As many? The chair recognizes the young senator. The young senator.
It is always a good thing when I hear it from Madam President.
Okay.
Madam President, it's truly an honor and privilege to serve in the capacity as an honorable senator in these honorable halls. I want to thank our God, who sits on the high throne, for allowing me to be here as a barefoot boy from Crooked Island, straight into Golden Gates to serve in this current capacity. I also want to thank the Bahamian people for putting your trust in our FNM administration, because if you didn't, none of us would be here today to serve in our current capacity. Last but not least, I want to thank the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, for his continued confidence in me to serve as an honorable senator. Madam President, we are here today to debate a number of companion bills. My fellow Bahamians, the year 2020 has shown and proved itself to be one that has a distinct and unique difference compared to previous budgets. My fellow Bahamians, never in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas did any, and I say it again, any government had to go through or deal with a pandemic such as this or like this. Madam President, over the past year, the government and the people of the Bahamas were forced with making the tough decisions to protect lives that will be at stake rather than sacrifice them for the mighty dollar. COVID-19 came to existence and devastated economies 30 times bigger than ours, leaving those countries shattered, distraught, and overwhelmed. Here at home, COVID-19 came to our doorsteps in March 2020 and has forced us to shut down our borders, our economy, and the list goes on. These decisions were met with critical response from some who did not know much about the deadly virus, but then later accepted and supported the measures that were put in place. I can't say the same about the opposition. Their reckless behavior, attitude, and political games revealed to be of no help towards the opposition, towards the government, and most importantly, the Bahamian people. Instead, the opposition played politics, and yes, more politics on this global pandemic, just to seek political mileage and political points. Madam President, you see, life will throw curveballs at us. It is inevitable for things to happen to us that we do not like. It is inevitable for things to happen to us that we did not cause or that hurts, that makes life more difficult. What matters though is that we do in preparation and in response. Life will throw a Hurricane Matthew or Irma. Life will throw a disastrous Hurricane Dorian. Or as the Secretary General of the United Nations described, a category hell. And yes, life will throw a coronavirus. As I said, life will throw things at us that are completely out of our control. But what matters, Madam President, is that we build our house on a solid rock and a solid foundation. That is what makes the difference. That is what we have done. We are rebuilding a new foundation for the modern Bahamas, and that is what we will continue to do. Madam President, Jesus speaks of two types of people whose hearts are revealed in their actions. He speaks of two builders, the wise builder who builds his house on a rock, and the foolish builder who builds his house on sand. For the wise builder, he says, the rain came down, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But for the foolish man, he said, the rain came down, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. I share with you, Madam President, colleagues, and my fellow Bahamians, because this FNM administration has proven itself to build itself on a solid rock. And because of its principles, it continues on its usual discipline and preparedness fashion. Recognize that in this deadly, trying, and unsure times, we ignore the continuous political temptations of the oppositions because in our hearts, Bahamian lives matters. Madam President, for those who may have forgotten, I will take this time to remind them. In our first 2 years, the number of discouraged workers decreased by 6.7%. The members opposite attacked us for this and said, well, that doesn't translate to the unemployment rate because it is still high. Then unemployment numbers were released. In our first 2 years, we've reduced unemployment on New Providence to under 10%. They then said, well, Grand Bahama is still unemployed. But then we reduced that by under 12%. The first time in 10 years. Then they criticize us and say, well, young people are still unemployed, but we show them that we even decreased that by over 1%. They then started hollering that the overall economy is not doing well. But hark, the herald, the angels sing. As good news came our way, we saw international reports that highlighted the fact that we had in our first 2 years of governance, the Bahamas under the leadership of Prime Minister, Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, and the FNM had enjoyed consecutive and disciplined growth of over 2% for the first time in 12 years. My fellow Bahamians, we showed the opposition what they couldn't do in their 2 terms while in office, and that is we increased record tourist visitors year after year for 2 years straight, which then the country welcomed a record of 7 million plus in 1 year. Taxi drivers, hair braiders, straw market workers, hotels workers in tourism field were all celebrating from the mountaintop saying that this is the best they have ever seen it in the years in the business. Madam President, during the pandemic, the government has kept its promise to protect jobs, bring relief to thousands of Bahamians through breaks or grace periods in paying their light bills, water bills, and the list goes on. While I'm on that, I also want to take this time to thank Corporate Bahamas for joining and supporting the government's request in bringing relief to Bahamians who have made private legal commitments to the organization. Your step forward has shown that it was not always about money or politics, but the fight to save lives and keep Bahamians' head above the water. Sadly, I cannot say that about the opposition. Madam President, I also want to commend this government for ensuring that Bahamians receive extra relief through an NIB, through NIB, my fellow Bahamians, the tasks and responsibility NIB took during this pandemic, where no government, minister, or staff had taken on in the history of this country. The load they took on trying to ensure that thousands of Bahamians coming on large scale was not designed for their present system. And they did the best they can, and I believe we should commend them. This was indeed a mammoth task. And I say that, Madam President, because it is easy for Bahamians to complain and say, I've been there NIB. Every time I go there, they tell me come back the next day, come back the next day. We have to appreciate as a people that the way our NIB was designed, it was designed to take on a certain amount of load. But when we're dealing with a global pandemic where the vast majority of the Bahamians are affected, the load will overwhelm the system. So, and that's why I said we should commend the employees at NIB for the hard work, the diligence, and the commitment to ensuring that our fellow Bahamians are served in the best humanly form as possible. During the pandemic, some $146 million has been poured into the domestic economy via unemployment assistance. It must be noted that for the first time in our nation's history, under the Employment Assistance Program to support self-employed persons who would not ordinarily qualify for the unemployment benefit under the National Insurance Benefit, over 7,000 persons have benefited with more than $22 million paid out and into the hands of Bahamians. My fellow Bahamians, the government has also funded a special extension of unemployment benefits for unemployed persons who had exhausted their standard NIB benefit. There are about 28,000 persons who have benefited from the initiative, with payments totaling more than $40 million. Under the regular unemployment benefit scheme, funded directly through NIB contributions, over 38,000 persons have applied to date. From its own resources, NIB has paid out some $93 million plus directly to those beneficiaries. Regarding food support, the government allocated a large sum of its COVID-19 relief plan to the National Food Distribution Task Force, which to date has assisted over 100,000 persons. Data from the Department of Social Services at that time indicated that over 11 million has been dispersed through the task force to participating non-government organizations who have been working tirelessly to assist those in need. Madam President, I publicly want to thank the dedicated men and women at Social Services and Urban Renewal for the hard work and dedication to ensure that our brothers and sisters were served in the quickest humanly time as possible. I also want to thank those from civil society as well. Your partnership to assist government and the people of the Bahamas will forever be appreciated, as history will be kind and remember you. Madam President, speaking of history, history will not be kind to the PLP opposition careless behavior during this pandemic. The opposition demonstrated to themselves, the government, the Bahamian people, and the Constitution that they politically did not have the country's interests at heart. Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, from 3 to 8, it says, "For everything there's a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from reversing." End quote. For those instructions from the Father above, this opposition, in its usual tirade, allowed their lust, power, by any means necessary to become their North Star, rather than ensuring the Bahamian people health and lives were protected. History will not be kind to the opposition for not putting the political swords down during this pandemic. History will not be kind because of your demonstration to compete with the government health task force, when instead you should be holding hand in hand in the name of unity and bipartisan. History will not be kind because of the refusal of the leader of the opposition to attend high-level meetings with the health professionals and cabinet officials so that he and his party can have a better understanding and appreciation of the measures being used. But his excuse was, I was just too busy. History will not be kind because months later, because of public pressure and ridicule, an opposition representative was sat in the meeting with the health professionals present. Because that individual couldn't have its way, he vowed never to come back. Madam President, the person never came back to the table. History will not be kind to the opposition who voted against 98% of the emergency orders, which were designed by the forefathers to keep Bahamians safe and decrease the possibility of the spread of the deadly virus. And yes, history will not be kind to the opposition who last year, during the early stage of a pandemic, while thousands of Bahamians were either getting infected, many dying, hospital beds becoming limited, and the list goes on, and the only thing they were concerned about and fighting for was calling for an early general election. History will not be kind. Madam President, as I move on, in a developing country, a responsible government will recognize that education is the key, and making it very accessible to the least amongst us is not just a sensible thing to do, but a moral duty while in office. The Effingham administration, while in power, fought tooth and nail against the opposition to ensure that became a reality. If I could just dig back, I want to quote back in 2014, where a publication from the Inter-American Development Bank stated that, and I quote, developing an early childhood casts a long shadow. Developing an early childhood casts a long shadow. Long-term panels show that the benefits of early investment can be seen all the way into adulthood. In one study from Jamaica, children who benefited from parenting intervention in the first 2 years of their life earned wages in adulthood that were 25% higher than the comparable children who had not participated. Children who had received parenting and intervention were also less likely to engage in criminal activity and early adulthood. Credible evidence from our number of sources reveal that the children with defects in nutrition, language, motor, social motion, development early, or less likely to learn in school, and the list goes on, are more likely to engage in risky behavior that result in early pregnancy, school dropout, and violence in adolescence, are less likely to become productive adults, end quote. In the Bahamas, it seems that when it comes to the 3 or 4 year olds who are eligible to attend preschools, there are about 12,000. One of the major goals of the Ministry of Education and the government is to accomplish universal preschool educational opportunities for 3 to 4 year olds by the year 2025. The Preschool and Daycare Center Council, since its inspection of COVID-19, partnered on a daily basis to date with all concerned government agencies, civic organizations, and with the gift of virtual platforms, all owners and operators of the daycare and preschool centers throughout the Bahamas pertaining to the care of education for very young children. As a result, to my understanding from the Ministry of Education, the following activities were achieved and in some cases are being continued. 1, regular meetings with daycare preschool operators to explain and abreast them of emergency orders. 2, training sessions for operators with environmental health and public health retaining protocols. 3, collaboration with the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education's team and NAECOB pertaining the reopening of preschools, primary, and high schools. 4, assisted private schools with registration procedures to enable face-to-face learning. 5, partnered with private school sectors and the Ministry of Education Early Childhood section to enable underprivileged preschool age children to become beneficiaries of the public-private school private preschool voucher program. 6, partner with the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit and the Small Business Development Center to identify operators of daycare and preschool centers who have duly registered to receive funding of $25,000 to aid upgrading their centers. 7, produce policy documents for the reopening of preschools in collaboration with the environmental health departments and public health department. And last, number 8, presently partnering with the Prime Minister's unit and the Ministry of Education's preschool childhood section in initiative for access to Crown land for daycare and preschool owners. The Ministry of Education, underneath the leadership of the Honorable Jeffrey Lloyd, are to be commended for the work they have done so far during this pandemic. During these trying times, and despite some technical challenges and criticism, schools were able to carry out their mandate, ensuring students continue to learn their lessons. Famous can attest that the government of the Bahamas, through the Ministry of Education, stayed faithful in upholding the promise and commitment to assist parents and children with getting much needed assistance during the pandemic. Between July 2020 to December 2020, 929 vouchers to 59 privately owned preschools. These 929 vouchers are valued at approximately $929,000. As I have said before, the government is hell-bent on ensuring that Bahamians, especially young Bahamians, get a chance to attend UB and BTVI free of charge. The opposition, in its, again, lack of appreciation, voted against this ever since the government introduced its free tuition program at the University of Bahamas, which enrollment at the University of Bahamas, which has increased 62%. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Ibrahim Menes, said, and I quote, "One of the greatest missions is to make the dream of a good education a reality for as many parents and children as possible." End quote. Sorry, not end quote. We are going to make these dreams a reality by transforming education for every level, including free preschool education, free education for qualified students to the University of the Bahamas and BTVI students. And it's projected that there will be an additional 10% every year of young people who could not get a college education would be able to get a college education thanks to the F&M, end quote. In addition, the government made it possible that the Family Island students traveling to Nassau to attend UB full-time will receive a $500 per month living allowance to assist with accommodations. My fellow Bahamians, unlike any time in the history of the Bahamas, Bahamians, especially young Bahamians, have taken on the government's challenge to enroll in BTVI and get a degree certificate in whatever it is that they feel is best suits them. Enrollment at BTVI has skyrocketed because the F&M government has made it possible for poor and middle-class families to enroll courtesy of the free tertiary. The opposition, who fibs and stories that they care for the poor, voted against this. When the BTVI with the Ministry of Labor and ORG conducted a skills gap survey. It was conducted, the survey revealed that some 60% of Bahamian employees have concerns about the skill set and quality of prospective employees. Since then, BTVI immediately revised its curriculum to create short, flexible, stackable, and certified courses, virtual opportunities countrywide, dual enrollments with high schools, emphasis on applications of skills, global certifications such as CompTI, Cisco, NCCER, City and Guilds, Microsoft, etc. Additionally, BTVI also developed and delivered ICT college level courses with industry certification to 400 grades in grade 10 to grade 12 high school students who have completed or are about to complete 12 BTVI courses will, and the completion, receive a BTVI diploma and between 10 and 12 industry recognized certifications. To my understanding, there are reportedly early acceptance of Tier 1 U.S. universities based in part on these certifications, and this is fully sponsored government program. I was made to understand that just last week, Tuesday, March 9, 2021, 90 students will be completing the NWCER core certifications from Morris Island, Nassau, Grand Bahama, Exuma, and they all will be graduating from this program. Another 200 in this program now with plans to have 600 complete the NWCER basics offering in August 2021. And then you'll have 1,000 by December 2021. Again, I say to you, my fellow Bahamians, this is a government that believes in you and your future, while those opposite vote against it. Madam President, the Minister of Education, Honorable Jeffrey Lloyd, announced that during the pandemic, that the City and Guilds assured benchmark standards have approved a 6-month certificate in global hospitality program, which starts in this summer 2021, to include BTBI Assured Certificate Introduction to Hospitality, BTBI Assured Certificate Introduction to Hospitality and Management, and BTBI Assured Certificate Introduction to Tourism Marketing. Also, BTBI Assured Certificate to Introduction to Strategic Tourism Marketing. BTBI is also working on a dual enrollment options for students in the private high schools. Educators, parents, and students see value in completing some industry certifications as these programs, as these provide them options as they complete their high school education. In addition, Minister Lloyd announced happy news that BTBI will be offering 2 short blended online and face-to-face certificate programs, namely 1, certificate in construction workforce readiness, and 2, a certificate in computers and technology. The programs are supported by scholarship assistance provided by the government of the Bahamas. The only cost to participants in this application fee, is the application fee of $25. These programs can be completed in approximately 10 weeks. Certifications are over 80%. My fellow Bahamians, the Family Islands have always been the pulse of the FNM. Under the FNM, Family Islands at grade 11 and 12 will have the opportunity to soon enroll in BTBI dual program, which will be a 5-course certificate in workforce preparation prepared with the Commonwealth of Learning. They include 3 certificates from City and Guilds and 2 from Cisco. My fellow Bahamians, despite all the hurdles, mountains, and pandemic that came during this administrative tenure, the administration, under the leadership of the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, did not fold up or broken its promise in ensuring that Bahamians, especially young Bahamians, continue to access their education. This, Madam President, displays support of our position and grounded commitment to education in the Bahamas. Madam President, the Ministry of Works, under the sound leadership of Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Desi Bannister, has done an excellent job during this pandemic. The ministry has led an aggressive campaign in improving the country's infrastructure and islands greatly affected by hurricanes incrementally. During the pandemic, the ministry was able to improve deteriorating sidewalks that needed much needed attention, especially in the over-the-hill areas. While this was one of the items approved in the budget, this will also spur some economic activity, which not just benefit communities in need of sidewalks, but also to help our young men to find employment, put their skills to use, and to gain an honest pay, which then trickles into them helping their families, paying bills, and putting food on the table, and the list goes on. The government buildings that were left disarray has seen major upgrades, which reduce and higher demand of taxpayers' money in the future for such works. Over in Ragged Island, we all know what happened to that island when Hurricane Irma, a Category 5, barreled on them, bringing winds at 185 miles per hour that left the island flattened. The Prime Minister was laughed at, criticized, and called delusional for making a vow to transform it into a fully green island in the region. The Prime Minister, who is known to be a man of his word, gave his word, and I quote, "I assure the wonderful people of Ragged Island that their island will be rebuilt." I remember members over there, especially here, saying it will never happen, and this administration is making promises that they cannot fulfill. Well, Madam President, since then we have seen the steady progress of Ragged Island. To date, things are looking well on that island. It is anticipated that by the end of May or beginning of June of this year, 95% of power in Ragged Island will be generated from the largest, most modern solar field in the Bahamas. Currently, our building code specifies that buildings are able to withstand winds of 150 miles per hour. The school in Ragged Island is being built to withstand winds of 180 miles per hour. Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Desmond Bannister, said, and I quote, "It will be a model for all schools that will be built in the Family Islands in the future. In addition to the classrooms themselves, the schools will have modern and comfortable residential accommodations for teachers who are stationed on Ragged Island and will serve as a hurricane shelter that can accommodate the entire population of Ragged Island should another hurricane hit the island." He continued, "We anticipate that the school will be ready for occupation in January 2022. And when we open the new school, we will invite all descendants of Ragged Island to return home so that they can see this amazing school for themselves." End quote. And Madam President, that's what you call vision. That's what you call commitment. And that is why I stand here that despite all that came our way as a country, the government must be committed. Must be commended for keeping their promise and staying focused and ensuring that Ragged Island is returned back to our old glory self. Madam President, as I have said earlier, Family Islands are the pulse of the FNM when it comes to listening and delivering on their much needed concerns. The FNM's proud and rich history of either implementing or improving The FNM's proud and rich history of either implementing or improving continues under this administration. Shanda Koha said, and I quote, investment in infrastructure is a long-term requirement for growth and a long-term factor that will make growth sustainable." End quote. Last year, with the approval of the minister, I announced plans to fix or replace bridges, generators, docks, and the list goes on. The opposition, who smiles at their do-nothing record, heckled me from Bimini to the north and to Nagua in the south, chanting that it will never be done. Yesterday, Senator the Honorable Clay Sweeten quoted from former Prime Minister Right Honorable Winston Churchill, "It is not what they say, watch what they do." I totally agree with him, because when I started to compare this administration's record to their 2002 and 2012 record, they called me everything but a child of God, all because they know they were failures. You know, they say when you throw a rock in the crowd, the guilty one always. Thank you. Again, it's not what they say, watch what they do. Speaking of failures, Madam President, and my fellow DMN, the bridge in Stanley Creek, Andros, was built in the 1960s. The PLP represented Andros for more than 40 plus years and watched the bridge deteriorated and allowed it to become progressively worse. The former minister responsible for works, who was also the deputy prime minister and now the current leader of the PLP, did nothing to address this matter, leaving it in critically severe condition. Like they said, it is not what they say, watch what they do. You know, the PLP always sings how much Andros is PLP town. But I say it is true what the Bible says, actions speak louder than words. This FNM government that values the people move full steam ahead to replace it with a new bridge. The most modern new iconic bridge will span the 300-foot creek, and I am proud to say that the opening ceremony for that bridge will be today at 3 p.m. This is another example for real representation. It is not what they say, it's what they do. Since last year, the Red Crusade has been moving through the islands, ensuring that those who are in desperately need of infrastructure upgrades be not left behind. In the Berry Islands, the government is constructing the island's airport, something that the PLP failed to do. The Red Crusade will be in Little Abaco by April. It is expected for the bridge to be completed and the entire project by July 2021. I love my colleague. The Red Crusade, my fellow Bayamans, the Red Crusade visited McLeanstown to visit the renovated clinic and local government administration complex, something the PLP failed to do. The Red Crusade was in Grand Bahama, where they visited to inspect the newly renovated Rand Memorial Hospital, something the PLP failed to do. The Red Crusade then stopped to inspect the newly renovated Garnick G. Lavardi Justice Center, something the PLP failed to do. The Red Crusade stopped in Spanish Wells, where the government lived up to its promise to replace the deteriorating bridge before collapsing to officially open the new bridge. And I and Senator the Honorable Clay Sweeten were present to witness this accomplished. As Senator Sweeten says, don't watch what they say, watch what they do. In these economic times, the FNM government has taken the lead in ensuring that we are stimulating the Family Islands economies with sustainable projects that will make a tangible difference in the lives of Bahamians, and that will improve our tourism product for decades to come. Madam President, the FNM government, who is a major supporter of creating and maintaining the middle-class Bahamian-owned businesses that employ Bahamians, understanding that these small businesses are the backbone of our economy, was able to assist over 280 small businesses with loans financing a collective of over 190 million plus in funding. Madam President, there's more. In addition to this government's commitment to ensuring that our economy's backbone is not totally shattered, business tax credits and deferral initiatives were advanced by the government late last year to minimize further private sector job losses. At that time, the Department of Inland Revenue approved over 40 companies who collectively benefited more than $6 million in tax credits and deferrals. With this decision making, over 5,000 vulnerable jobs were saved. The BCCEC chairperson, Mr. Crystal Rutherford Ferguson, said at that time that the announcement of the government's intentions to not raise taxes is positive, and as well as its intention to increase support to small businesses. I quote him, "Our initial impression of the budget communication is that it contains some items which we believe will have a positive impact on the business community, some items which require further details, and some items which will necessitate collaboration with the private sector to ensure successful implementation." End quote. My fellow Bahamians, this is good. This is really, really good. Because truth be told, if the business community is given a chance to recover and rebuild the right way, then this will turn over to more jobs being created and being secured. This is another example of building a house on a rock. It's all about. Madam President, when we speak about what the government has done to help people sustain themselves, I think one of the main crucial and often overlooked actions taken by this government is the hard and noble decision to not fire or reduce wages of any public sector employee. This in itself is the commitment of over $600 million. This $600 million going directly into the pockets of Bahamians and into our economy is a positive thing. No amount of government subsidy can replace the joy, dignity that comes from doing all you can to protect jobs. Another noble decision the government made was to increase the budget of social services from 49 million to 60 million, to over 60 million. These are funds that have gone directly to the most vulnerable in our society. Despite the country's back being against the wall, I am thankful that we have an FNM government that has and is decisive in making the tough decisions on behalf of the people. My fellow Bahamians, we can all agree that Dorian and COVID are unprecedented. These are pivotal events that have forced this government to deviate from its initial plan to balance our budget and engage in increased deficit spending. We can agree that this administration never turned its back on you, left you in the cold. Instead, we were with you from the start. We protected you from the global harm, and to this date, we are still here, hand by hand, and holding the line. Winston Churchill said, and I quote, "One ought to never turn one's back on a threatened danger and try to run from it. But if you meet it properly and without flinching, you will reduce the danger by half," end quote. Prime Minister Minnis has shown to be a 24-hour job leader by demonstrating that whenever the phone call is made, whether it's 3 a.m., he will answer to carry out his duties. The Davis-led PLP, on the other hand, well, all I can say is she just blow a whistle. Madam President, the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, announced last year in the House of Assembly that the government's expanding the over-the-hill economic empowerment zones to the Angleston area as well. The hallmark policy of this Minnis administration shows the government's commitment to empowering areas that are being neglected by PLPs for decades. This government has shown a commitment to teaching men how to fish instead of the PLP model of making them beg for fish. In essence, this government has written off and invested millions of dollars directly in over the hill areas via tax concessions, business classes, and capital injections. Madam President, as a unionist, I know the importance of equal opportunity. I know the rewarding feeling of working for a fair pay. I also know what it is like to work in a system that does not afford you the opportunity to elevate and advance. So it brings a particular sense of joy whenever I hear about the economic empowerment zone and its success and expansion. This Prime Minister and this government have truly shown in their actions what good governance is about. He is a captain. He, as captain, and his crew have navigated through these storms masterfully and humanly possible. The government has organized a fiscal strategy to move this country from crisis to opportunity. This is a 3-year plan to restore the nation's financial health and build economic resilience beyond COVID-19. This government will focus on keeping a strong COVID-19 response to save lives and ensure that we have a safety net and support for the least among us to reduce the hardship which they or their families may face. The government will also focus on recalibrating public finances by focusing on microeconomic goals, strong tax enforcement, reforming state-owned enterprises. My fellow Bahamians, the government will definitely be focusing on building the economy through many initiatives. The government will move forward with either removing or reducing the red tape, which hinders efficiency at the time it takes to getting approval on small matters. We believe in this FNM government that once this is addressed and fixed, this will help encourage more economic growth at a quicker pace. As the world moves into the digital world of doing business, This government has refused to allow the Bahamas to be left behind and will be doing its part to ensure that the government is more digital and business friendly, which will be an important ingredient in a strong employment growth, not just, well, employment growth in the private sector. And yes, my fellow Bahamians, the government will have a proactive risk management plan to place in place to help government to be vigilant and proactive in focusing on high levels of global uncertainty due to that pandemic and other risks. I assure you, my fellow Bahamians, the government, led by the most honorable Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, has and is working to not just protect the country's economic standing or jobs of Bahamians, but most importantly, the lives of you, your loved one, and the list goes on. In closing, I want to take this time to stress the importance of strong foundation. Imagine where we would be if we did not make the tough decisions early on. Imagine where we would be today if we had the remnants of the Davis-Mitchell administration in power. Imagine where we would be during these turbulent times of rain, wind, and floods if we had our foundation built on the sand of the Davis administration. We are at a critical point in our history. We are at a point where we can reset the economy and rebuild a new, vibrant economy, rising like a phoenix out of the ashes of Dorian and COVID. An economy where young people from all walks of life have the opportunity to become more than just workers, but owners. And if we have the resolve, if we have the courage and the strength to stick to the principles of this budget and the principles that ushered us into government, then I have no fear in saying we will continue to weather the storm. No matter how strong the winds, no matter how deep the floods, we will stand strong. We will emerge a greater, stronger, and more resilient Bahamas. Madam President, I support.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Senate colleagues, before I get into my presentation, I just want to, stand on my feet and commend the work that Senator Morse does in this House on behalf of this administration. And I would like to say that I am completely shocked and disheartened by the fact that this young senator, I think he still falls in the millennial category, and he puts a lot of effort into his speeches and his presentations, and sometimes he comes with his little information, and he has been looking for the opportunity to represent and serve at a higher level within your party, right? And I watched how the members in the other place spoke so much, boast so much about the former representative for South Central Andros and Mangrove Key, and everybody had a speech about how well he's done and why they did this and why they did that. And I am very surprised that they went that route, and no one thought it so important to talk about what happened to my friend and colleague, Senator Jamal Morse. They didn't do nothing. They didn't make no speech. I asked how much votes some of them have in the council, and they tell me they almost next to Papa in holding down the votes. But my homeboy, that's the homeboy, wanted that opportunity, and I am going to speak on his behalf. We across. I'm looking at the Bahamian people because they want to hear this. We across one another, but I am very disheartened. Because we thought we was going to go toe to toe and foot to foot, and his story is one that should be on the national stage. Seriously. He's come from far, and he grew himself within the F&M administration, torch bearer, pulling down the fort when nobody else wanted to. And look at what happened. Nothing. That's the problem. Nothing happened. Now, I would like for something to happen. A couple little more seats haven't been called as yet. So this is an opportunity for me to state my case on his behalf. You know, on his behalf. I am stating. That's my good family, so she only mean me well, I know. But I will carry on now. I just wanted to state that position.
Speak up, man.
Oh, prophetess, you know, I don't want to, you know, they say don't touch the prophetess. You know, my parents tell me about respecting the church and the altar. And I appreciate what she is in the realm of the spirit and in the church. So I won't push further for her to go anywhere else within this administration. We're about to get kicked out anyway. Right? She can go back in the church because she has a serious ministry over her life, a calling over her life. She's a prophetess. So I'm not going there with her. Even though I support her 100% too, she should have gotten that seat. No, that's okay. I could cut whatever in defense of these two, my Senate colleagues. I can cut in defense of them. So both of them should have gotten an opportunity. I didn't want to focus too much on the prophetess because she's doing a good work in the mornings at 5 a.m., speaking to people's lives and their souls and encouraging them.
But Senator Henfield, you've been left out. What happened?
I spoke, Madam President, before, and I'm going to get into my speech, Madam President, but before I spoke to Senator Henfield, before I stood up, I spoke to him, and me and him had an agreement that I didn't have to defend him publicly because he feels like he's okay, right? And then I see he said he's going down to Easter fight with Kwesi, so you know I done get a little hint with that the internal workings, Kwesi may be next in line. So I see what's going on. So I will leave him, but he knows I support him too. Now, Madam President, I go into my presentation. And as always, I am grateful to God for granting me this opportunity to stand in this place and contribute to the building of this great country, the Bahamas. Madam President, I rise today with a somber but hopeful heart. I am saddened because as I talk to people from all corners of the Bahamas, especially in the Elizabeth constituency, it is becoming clear that for many Bahamians, the past year has been a trial that they are constantly struggling to cope with. Every day, I am struck by the resourcefulness and resilience of the Bahamian people. If there's any sign that there is light at the end of this tunnel, you need only speak to the many single mothers making a way where there is none, and the fathers finding a way to support their families in whatever way they can. There are children who are determined to get an education by any means possible, even if it means sitting on the steps of buildings with public available Wi-Fi to log into schools. And of course, there are thousands of frontline workers who showed up to work every day to ensure that the essential services we need were up and running during the height of the pandemic. I look around at my Bahamian people and the strength and determination they've displayed, and I am reassured that we are going to be all right. Of course, the sobering reality is not everyone is making it. The longer the pandemic lasts and the longer the economy remains in the doldrums, we are going to lose even more people along the way. I am speaking not only to the illnesses and deaths directly and indirectly caused by COVID-19, but also about the people who are losing battles with their mortgages, businesses that are drowning in overhead costs with too little revenue, children who are falling further and further behind in school, families facing homelessness, men and women unable to manage their mental and emotional health, and many others who are suffering during this pandemic. Madam President, it didn't have to be this way. While the pandemic and economic downturn may have been unavoidable, there were countless missteps made by the Minnis administration that have exacerbated the situation. The mismanaged blunders and cold-heartedness of this administration have amplified the suffering of our people at a time when they needed a government to look out for their best interests. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and even before Hurricane Dorian, we all watched as the Minnis administration squandered opportunities to promote growth within our borders. After taking office, the major initiative that they decided to pursue was a range of austerity measures that they claimed were intended to shore up the government's finances. We all remember them bragging about how they were going to eliminate budgetary deficits and the national debt while sending countless Bahamians to the unemployment line, slashing budgets across the board, and raising VAT by 60%. They told us they were doing this for the good of the country. But what do they have to show after all these years of increased taxes and budgetary cuts? Absolutely nothing. What makes their decisions even more frustrating is that when they came into office, they met a booming economy. Globally, countries like the United States were experiencing record lows in unemployment. Markets are at an all-time high, and tourism numbers were steadily increasing year after year. Rather than seeking ways to stimulate the private sector, which would naturally increase government revenues, this government made decisions that stymied growth and kept unemployment hovering in the double digits range. Consequently, any surplus that the nation might have had to better weather the shocks of Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19 were depleted. Long before any storm or pandemic hit our shores, the first disaster that Bahamians had to deal with was the disastrous fiscal management and economic strategies of the Minnis administration. If only the members of the cabinet were as competent as they are arrogant, the country would have been in a better position today. Here we are, 1 year into the pandemic, and the incompetence abounds. It seems that a different cabinet member or MP is caught up in a scandal every other month, and the Prime Minister himself seems content to make crass public remarks about pumping iron and laying pipe, while his executive leadership team is collapsing all around him. In the midst of all these events, the Minnis administration has gotten away with unprecedented levels of disrespect to the media and anyone else who dares to question him. In fact, can we even remember the last time the Prime Minister answered a question? His blatant reach for power while silencing any naysayers and refusing to answer the questions posed by the Bahamian people should worry us all. There is simply no transparency and no accountability when it comes to the way he has managed our country. This is the new low in governance and democracy for our nation. He should be ashamed. Madam President, I have heard the contributions by the Prime Minister in the other place and the Minister of State for Finance in this place. I have seen the fancy print media that I really think they should stop wasting our tax dollars on and get real with being transparent and accountable. I acknowledge that in their mind, it seems like a job well done for them to pat themselves on the back. But I humbly say to this Minnis administration, when it comes to being accountable and transparent, get real. Madam President, for the last 4 weeks, I have been on a course with Transparency International, and we have traveled virtually across states in the United States. We have met with various government and independent agencies. For the most part, many of the presenters work in various independent agencies that deal specifically with transparency and accountability and how to maintain that level of oversight in protecting public finances. In Chicago, we had a presentation from a team of the Better Government Association of Illinois, BGA, where they are the watchdogs for organizations. They have 3 teams the investigation team who revealed the problems, the policy analysts who propose solutions, and the outreach team who empowers residents to seek change, all of which leads to the necessary reforms to the governance systems for the benefit of the people of Illinois. In Chicago, there exists the Freedom of Information Act. They spoke on the relationship with the independent journalists and how they interact with FOIA officers to retrieve documents for their investigation and what they have legal rights to access. This minister's government, I recall, marched when they were in opposition about how important this piece of legislation is. But here we are 4 years later, still all talk. Madam President, you know, the Minister of State kept reminding us yesterday how his government is all action. But it is interesting to see how and when they act. Their action is usually in a campaigning-like way. You know, much of it is inspired by the desire to continue to hold on to power. See, I'm saying this because in this debate, we are also dealing with a compendium of financial bills, one which is titled the Public Procurement Bill. And I note that while it has the intent to provide transparency and openness to the public, there still remains too much involvement via appointment of all those on the board by the Prime Minister, as noted in Section 15. If we are trying to truly change the culture of the Bahamas and provide more Bahamians with opportunities to excel and be more involved in these contractual business deals with the government, it would be my suggestion that we have less say from the Minister of Finance in this board appointment and more independence of the board. This is what true accountability and transparency looks like. Madam President, I recall reading an article where 16-year-old Wesley Ross sat in his home in Woodbury, Minnesota, and applied for procurement contracts online to sell masks to the government during the beginning of the pandemic. Wesley got quite a few contracts and began expanding his business by searching the government procurement website to see where there was a need and making that available through his company. That was inspiring and impressive. That is what true empowerment feels like. No cutting corners, no backdoors, no pleading and begging your MPs to put in a word. Just open, honest, and transparent transactions, open and available to anyone, whether you are sitting in your mother's home in Elizabeth Estates or whether you are in Acklands. Every Bahamian truly deserves a government that will make this possible. Clause 48 deals with the bid security, and we must be mindful while the drafters have good intentions that there must be clear access to contracts by all Bahamians. In Clause 66, the president sitting alone, who was appointed again by the Minister of Finance, can constitute a panel. This gives too much power to one person to control when to set up panels to hear appeals. That's very concerning. Sets out how appeal tribunals can be set up to hear panels. And Clause 72 through 74 deals with the debarment process. If we are moving towards a more transparent procurement process, which I think is the intention, my suggestion would be that bids are accepted and rejected based on the application itself and qualifiers based on merit and quality assurance. To that end, it is no revelation that this administration appears to be scrambling to call an early election, consistent with their desire to avoid being held accountable for their bad choices. The Minutes administration seems intent on calling an early election to avoid having to give an accurate assessment of the economic conditions of our nation. You see, their overly optimistic projections of government expenses and revenues can only stand for so long before the reality of the situation demands that adjustments are made. We see this pattern year after year as the government continuously pretends to be surprised as it has to get more loans to make up for what they call unexpected shortfalls. So it makes sense that a government seeking to avoid being held accountable and their follies being embarrassingly exposed on the world stage would be in a rush to seek for an early election before the Bahamian people can see the true extent of their incompetent mismanagement of our nation's affairs. Of course, the major flaw in that plan is that in order for their deceit to continue, they must win the next general election. I can assure you that each day that goes by makes that possibility more and more remote. The Bahamian people are tired. They are struggling, fed up, and ready to see some major changes in this country. The kind of changes that they no longer trust the current administration to deliver for them. And if PM Minnis and his colleagues don't believe me, then I invite them to ring the bell so that the Bahamian people can show them how they feel. Madam President, the missteps by this administration has cost the Bahamian people dearly. The voodoo economics, failed fiscal strategies, misguided priorities, and overall lack of substantive initiatives has led to the worst fiscal situation in our nation's history. It really didn't have to be this bad, but they were intent on taking this country on an ill-advised path that the opposition has been warning them about since 2017. Now, as we near the end of their term, the country is reaping what the Minnis administration has sown. We have borrowed approximately $2 billion per year since the 2017 elections with nothing to show for it. Not one new clinic, not one new school or major infrastructural project to show for all that borrowing. Actually, we do have something to show for it, a national debt that has ballooned to nearly $10 billion. We also have a number of half-baked schemes and plans that are perpetually in negotiation but can never seem to get off the ground. Look no further than Grand Bahama and Abaco, where people are still living in hurricane-damaged homes, tents, and temporary housing years later, while the government puts out statement after statement about all the great work it has been doing in disaster recovery that somehow hasn't been felt or seen on the ground. This is not to mention fiascos like the Oban deal and the sale of the Grand Lucayan. The Minnis administration's incompetence is by no means limited to the Northern Islands. Their lackluster governance has negatively impacted every island in our archipelago. Their failure to achieve liftoff on major initiatives is symptomatic of a directionless, visionless approach to running the country. What the Bahamian people need now, more than ever, is a clear economic strategy and a developmental blueprint charting the way forward. The problem is that this administration has lacked a plan from day one. On assuming office, the Minnis administration spent the first 2 years criticizing and blaming the PLP while moving forward with their economic strangling austerity measures that never really worked out. Maybe if they had spent the first 2 years coming up with a plan instead of having cabinet ministers meddle in court affairs as a part of baseless political witch hunts, they would have had more substantive accomplishments prior to the arrival of Dorian and COVID-19. From March of last year, the PLP has been warning Minnis administration that it needed to come up with a holistic plan to combat COVID-19. We offered our assistance and even put out a plan of our own that could serve as a guide. The PLP COVID-19 plan addressed the need for increased testing, tracing, isolation, treatment, protection of frontline workers, and public education. And as to education, one of the hardest hit groups in this pandemic, whose stories will largely go unseen and unheard, are our students. When the country went on lockdown, their lives forever changed. And since then, they have been living in turmoil and uncertainty. During the course of this pandemic, the Minister of Education failed in providing a national address that directed towards our students to let them know the plan and the vision for their education moving forward. COVID changed the world, and nowhere was that more felt than in education. Instead of hunkering down and creating a long-term plan to ensure that no child is left behind, the procrastination, lack of foresight, inability to plan and execute, and the government's hostile relationship with educators have left the majority of our students way behind their peers globally. How arrogant of the minister, how negligent of the government to never once present a white paper, a plan to move forward the entirety of the pandemic. They are just winging it. And this isn't a government who is focused on young people. To all students, parents, teachers, administrators in the public sector and the private sector, rest assured that we, the PLP, have a plan. Our plan recommended the expansion of the competent authority first and foremost, to include a range of experts to build trust in the decisions being made by the government. We also stressed the need for a robust economic package that included an expanded social safety net for the most vulnerable in our country. We have spent every day ever since trying to convince this administration that there is more to managing a pandemic than lockdowns and curfews. The government thinks that they have found a formula to combat COVID, but their short-sighted policies have done more harm than good, especially to local businesses. And we will continue to admonish the government to come up with a holistic plan for addressing all the impacts of the pandemic. We must change course if we want to avoid a potential third wave and emerge from this economic downturn sooner rather than later. At the very least, they could try listening to their own public health and economic experts who have gone on record several times since the start of the pandemic to indicate that the government's decisions are not always evidence-based. Will the government ever publish its COVID-19 and vaccine rollout plans in a cohesive and digestible way? Will the Economic Recovery Committee's report ever be more than a pretty document used to capture headlines for a few days for the sake of our nation? I hope so. Madam President, the Progressive Liberal Party has released its economic plan to not only provide immediate relief for the Bahamian people, but to provide long-term economic growth and stability by stabilizing the government's fiscal situation. Stimulated economic growth and job creation, investing in education and training, creating opportunities for local business owners, and empowering youth and modernizing our energy generation and digital infrastructure. Ultimately, this plan will lead to the full-fledged implementation of the National Development Plan created during the last PLP administration. The NDP is not only the best and most comprehensive long-term plan for national development put out by any administration. It is the only comprehensive long-term national development plan ever developed for this nation. Our economic plan will provide much needed relief for Bahamian people by reducing VAT and phasing in a $250 per week minimum wage while providing increased need-based support. On the government side, we are proposing a number of revenue enhancement measures that will stabilize the nation's fiscal health for the foreseeable future. Unlike the current administration, we do not engage in voodoo economics and magical thinking when it comes to our economic strategies. What you will find in our economic plan are a number of well-researched, evidence-driven objectives that have been well received by economists and financial experts throughout the country. If anyone within earshot hasn't yet read our plan, don't take my word for it. I invite you all to head over to plpbahamas.org to see for yourself. plpbahamas.org. And as we take a close look at the government's budgetary performance, it is clear that this administration has lost its handle on our nation's fiscal situation, and a change must be made to stop our downward slide. Considering that every member of this administration who has gone on record has praised their performance and decision-making throughout this pandemic, it is clear that the change that the Bahamian people need will not come from within the F&M government. Their arrogance, incompetence, and lack of connection with the plight of the everyday Bahamian is preventing them from seeing the error in their ways. Fortunately, the next PLP government is waiting in the wings to address the situation. Since the government seems unprepared to commit to a plan of its own, I suggest that they make way and let the people with the plan, the PLP, show them how to run this country. Bahamians, it did not have to be like this. But after every storm, the sun shines again. After every winter, the spring blooms. And after this disastrous government, the PLP will rebuild, restore, and revolutionize. Our candidates are on the ground. Follow them on social media and welcome them into your homes. Hear our plan. Help and hope is no longer on the way. It is here. Thank you.
That's many. The chair recognizes Senator Knowles.
Madam President, I rise in my very humble state, thanking my Creator for the gift of life, and also thanking the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, for affording me the privilege to express myself nationally from the walls of this high chamber that is called the Senate. At the outset, let me clearly state that I support the compendium of bills, but I will preface my short contribution on the mid-year budget and its impact on the Family Island. Madam President, kindly permit me to send condolences to some very, very important person and to highlight others on their achievements. The first of those condolences is to the family of the late Ellen Johnson, a native of Crooked Island, Morristown to be exact, 101 years. He lived long, Madam President, in those Southern Islands. And Mrs. Johnson was a former teacher. Her son, David Johnson, was my teacher. And so she lived life to the fullest. I'm sending condolences to, of course, my teacher and all of the siblings of Ellen Johnson. Mrs. Veronica Marshall, a very close friend of mine from Exuma. Our paths crossed when Archdeacon Cartwright, he was in charge of the Southern Bahamas at the time. And one of his goals was to bring those Southern Islands together from the church perspective, from the Anglicans' perspective. And there was Crooked Island and Inagua and Turks and Caicos and Exuma and Long Island and Rumkey. We were all in the same archdeaconry. And Mrs. Marshall had a very, very important role in the archdeaconry. She's an organist. She played the organ in St. Andrews, and she attained the high office of diocesan vice president for the great and famous Anglican Churchwomen. Mrs. Marshall was a household name not only in Exuma, but all over this Bahama land. Businesswoman, her and her late husband, John, they had many businesses, the gas station, the restaurant, and of course the hotel and others that they managed over the years along with their children. And so today I send condolences to Marshall, the Marshall family. And I was taken back when I got a call from Exuma to say that Ms. Marshall, it was bad taste for the family, Madam President, that there was a serious, how should I put that? Well, there was a lot of trucks and cars in parade during the time, and the family probably, I think, take exception to that. It's a big motorcade, I think, from the PLP. So let me not say PLP. I think the motorcade was there, the chess man, Mr. Cooper. During the Marshall time, no, it was not a funeral. That was a motorcade. It was political. I think the family, you need to talk to that about it. The family thought it was in poor taste, and so those are things that can be ironed out. Yes, Miss Marshall was a very, very dedicated woman to Exuma. I thought they just told me about that. That's why we move on from that, Madam President, but may her soul rest in peace. And finally, I want to make mention of, I am, in my earlier days, well, even now, I am an avid fan of baseball. And I remember the name Adam Brister, a Bahamian icon. I also remember that serious bunt that caused the Cincinnati. Most of you around here are too young to know about that. But Adam Brister's bunt during I think it was the last inning for the Cincinnati Red, caused the Reds to win the national championship. And so I send condolences to the family of Ed and Brister. May all their souls rest in peace, and may their legacy live on. I want to highlight a young girl by the name of Jakara, a J-K-A-R-A. Jakara Adley is a 10-year-old 5th grade student at the Sybil Strawn Primary School. She's the recipient of the Vice Principal Award. She's on the honor roll. She has achieved 3.75 as a GPA. Recently, she was elected to be a part of that group of students to perform the same month in the annual Commonwealth Virtual Assembly. And though I know that Jakara, seemingly to be a shy student, was very, very impressive during that virtual Commonwealth Day Assembly. And so I promised her that I will make mention of her from these walls. And so congratulations, Jakaro, on your recent performance. Well done, and continue the great work. On that note, Madam President, we are to highlight students, especially, and I'm saying coming from my background as a teacher, they are the future of the Bahamas. And so when we would have passed on, we need students, both male and female, to replace us. I want to speak on another highlight is that I didn't have the opportunity on the Women's Day, International Women's Day, I'm sorry. I didn't have the opportunity to speak on International Women's Day. And so, Madam President, I take liberty now to highlight all those great women. Now, if you were paying attention to the House of Assembly, the member for Fox Hill, Madam Shonell Ferguson, would have made a very, very important contribution. I'm not sure whether it's on the same day as International Women's Day, but whenever the House of Assembly met, be that after or before, she made a very, very clear debate on the women. And she highlighted a number of women. And we know, Madam President, that Shonell Ferguson, MP Shonell Ferguson, is a sports icon. She has represented the Bahamas well here and abroad. I think she was the high jump specialist back in those days. And she highlighted many, many women. And so those of you who are interested, please get a copy of Shonell Ferguson address as it relates on her webpage, I think, as it relates to women in politics. As for me, Madam, I was delighted to know persons, Bahamian women in politics and outside of politics. And name came to mind is the late Teresa Moxie Ingram. She was one of my heroes. Janet Bostwick is another hero. I don't know Mary Ingram, but I've heard so much about her. So she became another hero based on what I've learned about her. And many, many others, Bahamian women, in and outside of politics. And so I commend all of those women. And I am delighted to see that a number of women was given themselves to be in politics. I wish them all well. Does not matter from which party they come. I wish all female well. I also wish all the male well. But there's only 39 seats in the Bahamas, and only 39 persons so far, unless it change. Only 39 persons could really attain. Senator, you from the Family Island. Good to see you. Moving right along, Madam President, I thought that I'll say those things. I have 3 points, 4 points. Sorry, 5 points. They are points. They are points. The first, I want to deal with education. Listen to the Minister of Education, and I was very, very impressed with his delivery in the House of Assembly. Coming out of teaching, Madam President, it is true that parents are putting emphasis on the wrong thing. In this day and age, they're putting emphasis on the $500 tennis, the uniform, and all the things that go along with it. But less emphasis is being placed on learning or obtaining apparatus for learning. I have seen it with my own 2 eyes that parents will purchase what I term a non-essential thing for their children, as opposed to buying a book to read or a tablet for a time and a season as this. And so when he said that, when I'm speaking about the ministers, when the minister talked about the importance of parents, I was more than 100% on his side. And so parents, it might sound as a slap in the face, but it's not. It's an encouragement that we must put emphasis where emphasis ought to be. I need parents to get back to the grand old days when students used to take their books seriously, their learning seriously. And the parents was in the back backing them. And Madam President, most of the time the parents was not as smart as these parents. You know, they definitely didn't have no cell phones and tablets, and those was a joke. The internet was I don't think it was conceivable then, but they were the guiding forces behind their children. And we need to get back to that and stop trying to be anything other than correct. And so thank you, Minister, for that. I want to just send that home. Now, the Minister of State made a delivery yesterday, and it was par excellent. Par excellent. Senator, you cannot deny that Minister Thompson passionately deliver fruit based on what he did. You can't deny. It's undeniable. And so I commend the minister. I don't even want to tamper with what the minister said, because I believe he done had an ASD here this year. Yes. I do likewise as well. But Minister, you were excellent as always. You believed in what you said, and it came out as that. And so I thank you. But I want to just touch on the digital part. And I'm praising the government for the digital part. The Bahamas, soon directly, that's a word that we use in Crooked Island, soon directly, we gotta be paperless. We will be paperless. And so I beg that we look at little workshops, little seminars to educate persons, because the truth be told, Minister, as much as we have cell phones and the rest of them, there are a lot of persons who is somewhat afraid of the internet and the rest of them. And we need little teaching for the adults. Now, most of the time, the young children, the young ones get it. But we have many adults in them who, for some reason, is a little timid towards the internet. And so it is the government's duty to educate its citizens so that nobody can be left behind. And so I want to just hammer that down. And I endorse, if not all, most of the things that my fellow Senator Henfield said. We got to go beyond now. We have done well. There's no denial that we have done well. Now we are marching to beyond. And so let us march beyond the veil and get it right. And of course, with that comes the education of all. Family Island and its economics. Before I reach the Family Island, I just want to talk a thing about the preparation of land that Senator Henfield spoke about. We also need the government to move swiftly There are lots and lots of young professional workers out there without a roof over their head. Now, I can tell you something. I grew up in Crooked Island, so I was taught that a roof over your head means a lot. And if you think that's a joke, try not having one over your head and see what the details will be like. And so we must move swiftly again in the city to get that Carmichael Road. Sorry, it's the Carmichael area, which is good. The lots are very, very reasonable. And also there's a lot there for the disabilities as well, which is wonderful. And we need to move swiftly. These are things that we don't need to tarry in. They're like medium term. So let's prop it up to start it now. In 2017, Madam President, a contract was given to, I don't know the name of the company. I'm not sure they have a name, but a company, pre-election, before the election in 2017, gentleman was given a contract to do the roads in Crooked Island, to do some, or to do part of the roads in Crooked Island. And to my knowledge, he's still there doing the road. You understand? I don't know. Crooked Island has a lot of road, but I can tell you ain't have that much. I mean, and then it was only a part of a road. It's not. It wasn't the whole road. And this is the truth as it is in Jesus. And so I need something. I need some investigation in that, because the road in the Bahamas cannot take 4 years, and you're only doing part of the road. And so that is the downside of it. It's not negative, but it's the downside. It's true. And so maybe it might cause to have a look at it. But the Family Island boasts about their roads, their docks, well, their airports, some of them. When I stand here, I speak for all Family Islands, but particularly the South. I don't make no qualm about that. I don't make no argument. When I stand, I speak particularly for the South. South airports and docks. Minister, folks, you made a very good contribution yesterday as well. Excellent. And in your contribution, I heard the docks, the Crooked Island. Didn't hear the airport. Yeah, yeah, docks in Crooked Island. So it's coming, and that's good news. Good news, Family Island. Now, we was battling with our little airport. I understand that the airport cannot, they don't just spring up and the kind of money that is needed for airport, probably not available. But we do it just like you do other airports. I understand, like Senator Henfield says, public and private partnership. We got some people there with some good money, Senator, and they are willing to come in and do the airport. And it is needed. The Bible says, let the strong bear the infirmity of the weak. I consider the South in terms that we're not strong. No bones in us are strong. I don't want you to don't get mixed up. We are not weak. Maybe some are weak in the pocket, and so we need help elsewhere. And so I entreat you to make sure that these amenities are on par with these southern islands, just as it is in other islands. We deserve that as well, Madam President. I am privileged to look over some centers in Family Island under the heading of urban renewal. And I can tell you that under the Minister Campbell, there is a small home repair, and that small home repair is headed by Mr. Albie Penn. Very good man, very good man. So far, Madam President, between New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Family Island, as we divide urban into three categories: New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Grand Bahama and Bimini together, and Family Island. So far, Madam, we have done almost 600 roofs since late 2017. The bulk of those is in New Providence, as you may know, because New Providence is not larger, but the population is. So the bulk of them are done. I was privy to see 44 houses done in Abaco, including Grand Key. Grand Key is Abaco any day. 44 roofs. But Hurricane Dorian did a number to all of those in Grand Key. Not no fault of our own. The hurricane came and destroyed most of the houses. Not all. Only a few left to tell what it looked like. And so week after next, which will be in April, we are moving into Eleuthera to do at least about 22 roofs. And then on to Andros, we have all of that sited already. And then on to McCall. Now, you know, I from McCall, that should be the place, but then suffer it to be so now. I think the need is good. Eleuthera, I miss out Eleuthera. Oh, Eleuthera is in April. Yeah, and that is in your area that you change your area. Yeah, there's gonna be we coming to Eleuthera, I think some 22 roof that we plan. It's already sited. So everything is done with only a matter of moving there at the time and all. You know, we have government of order. So we just don't sprung about it, clear and do things. We just do things in decency and in order. So I move on from there. We having an all-island cleanup campaign spearheaded by urban renewal in those centers, and we are partnering with the local government and everybody else on the island. So I sent a clarion call to all those islands who have centers and who do not have it. Let's keep our Bahamas clean. And I'm sure the managers in those centers have already informed just about everyone about the island-wide cleanup. And then we propose a drive. Recently, during this pandemic, Madam President, nothing much was done for the children. Our children in urban is accustomed to Easter egg hunt. Because of that, we're not doing the Easter egg hunt. But we have not dropped it. So there will be a drive-by Easter hunt. And so persons will be driving by the center and picking up with their children, of course. We're not giving Easter thing to the parents. Parents are there for driving purposes. And so we're having a drive-by, and that will be given to the students in the vehicle. And so I ask that all those who want to partner with it, or even is an entity that you can partner with for the betterment of the islands in the vaccine, AstraZeneca vaccine is here. This is what the pandemic has caused. You're not worrying about the pandemic anymore. because I think it's here for good. That's my personal belief. I'm not a medical doctor or anything. I think it's here for good. But we must continue to do what we're supposed to do: wash our hands, wear a mask, keep our distance, leave the rest to God. And He will work it out for us as He has been working out. I pause to send condolences to all those persons whose family have lost their life during this pandemic. That's about all that we can do. I always say that people, one death is too much. Nobody really wants to die. But I'm sure if there was in our power to keep them alive, we would have done so. But may they all souls rest in peace. There's a lot of things about who should take it and who shouldn't take it. Or I'm not going to take it, and the rest of them. And the vaccine is having some other thing. But ladies and gentlemen, I remember going to school. I still remember my school days. And I remember I didn't even know the name at that time. I now know it's vaccine. But during those days, I was forced to take it. Well, not so much forced, but your mommy sent you to school and you were at school, you had to take a vaccine. I don't know if it was a bomb that you put in your hand or the rest of them. I took it. Some people, I said this to a lady the other day, I said some people, hands turn out, you can see the marks from it for the years. Some people still have marks from it. Didn't kill them, but it leave a spot on them. Luckily for me, I have tough skin like the turbot. Mine, nothing happened to me. And I take many vaccines during my short lifespan in this earth. And so I intend to take it. And I'm not afraid. Yes, I intend to take the vaccine, and I advise all of my colleagues to do likewise. And so just let's get this phobia out of people's mind about this thing and that thing. You can imagine years ago you was taking something you didn't have the slightest idea about, and nobody complained. And so the environment. Madam President, I got a letter from the architects about a bill that we passed. Some time ago, we passed extension to the environmental protection regulations. I think we might have to look, AG, we might have to look at that bill again, because I'm going to show you the letter that was sent. But I think it has a policy. My understanding, again, I'm a teacher, not an architecture, I'm not a medical thing, I'm not this. My understanding is that the bill more or less interferes, well, it's law now, more interfere with the law governing architect as it is. And to put it simply, it's like making it harder for the small man. Now, you know, and I know this government doesn't make anything hard for the small man. We are in the business of ease of doing business. And so, if we created something that put pressure on the small man when he builds one little chicken coop, and that's my turn. It's nobody builds chicken coop other than for the chicken. But that's my turn. If he builds the smallest, let me use the right thing before selling us the chicken coop. If he builds the small house, he attempts to build the small house. He goes through all of the red tapes and the paper, and he has to do this, and he has to do that. After doing all these things, one would wonder if you want to build a house again. So we are in the air of easing pressure of a small and medium man. So we don't need these things to conflict with the legislature. So we may need to look at that again and help the small man to build a reasonable for themselves. Finally, those who thought I couldn't talk short, finally, and this is not a warning, there's election in the air. Election in the air by the movement. Well, next year is right here. Before we close our eyes and open it again, next year will be here. I can tell you that. And I see a proliferation of parties. Now, you may say that in the senator business. It's my business. I live here. I don't have a problem with a lot of parties. I don't have a problem. I have a problem with the amount of money that they are paying to become elected. You have to pay a fee, right? A nomination, we pay a fee. And the fee, I think, is $400, Madam President. I think the minimum should be $1,000. If you can't pay $1,000 and if you want to vie for a seat, then sit down. Sit down. That is almost mute now because the fee is $400. But I would ask that we raise $400 per person. I would ask that we raise that fee to $1,000 so we wouldn't make a mockery. What I see is being done now, a mockery of persons who wants to run. And this is not a lecture, but I'm encouraging members to let's take the high roads during election. We don't have to be hostile. There's no room for hostility if we don't see the same thing. And so we ought to listen to each other. I don't have to agree. Many times I don't agree with questions, but I don't be rude to it. I don't be rude to it. And I want us to live as one because at the end of the day, we should always be our brothers and sisters' keeper. And there is no room in this time, there's no room in this day and this hour for us to not work smart and be hostile to each other. We must respect each other's view, even though we don't agree, we disagree. And so on that note, Madam President, I rest my case, and of course I support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. As many?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Madam President.
Yeah. Yes, sir. The chair recognizes.
Yeah. No. Perhaps I know that I would actually normally be scheduled to speak after the luncheon break, but perhaps if the other side would agree, if I can do this because it's probably more convenient. I've got luncheon at 1:15. The first thing that I wanted to say was I was a bit disturbed, Senator Knowles, about the comment made about Mrs. Marshall and the fact that Chester Cooper, the deputy, had organized this parade on Saturday, which I think you indicated disturbed some members of the family. I think that was what you said. So I know the Marshall family very well. There's not a time I would go to Exuma and not see Mrs. Marshall. She was a good friend of my late mother. all of them being in the Anglican Church Women Together. So this kind of surprised me. And I also know the hypersensitivity which the deputy leader would have to the issue of the Marshall family and would not do anything that would plan. Anyway, so I spoke to Julian Marshall. I just walked off the floor and called him. And he's very surprised at that comment. He said that speaking on behalf of his family, I could say that I spoke to him and that there is no concern about the fact of that taking place on Saturday. So perhaps if you spoke to your informant and if you can tell me off the floor so that we can, sort of sort it out. But according to him, there is no concern or issue about that. I just wanted to. Yeah. Right. Okay. But I did speak to him and he said that I could repeat those words. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yesterday, Madam President, was St. Patrick's Day, and it's a strange thing to be saying Happy St. Patrick's Day, but I'll tell you why I did it. I want to do it. I didn't have the opportunity yesterday to do so, because the white Bahamian community in the Bahamas, many of their ancestors came from Ireland. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Senator Clay Sweeting yesterday, and he said that his grandfather was a Kelly. Mother? Grandfather's mother was a Kelly.
Senator, can I just interrupt you for a second? We just want to verify that this is your
Yes, it
contribution to
is.
this debate.
I think the other side.
Okay.
Yeah, I will be about 30 minutes.
No, well,
Yes,
for the
just
record,
about the
we
lunch.
needed to be clear.
So I was talking about St. Patrick's Day, and Senator Clay Sweeting was saying that his grandfather's mother came from Ireland. And I mentioned this because I found this very curious. One day I was talking to, I think he's the late Jeff Butler now, who at one point wanted to be a candidate for the F&M in West Grand Bahama. And we went to school at St. Augustine's together. And I never went beyond what their antecedents were. But he told me one day we were sitting at lunch that his family every year, as part of their Irish heritage, actually celebrated St. Patrick's Day in the Bahamas on an annual basis. So I thought, given that I would say to those whose ancestry hails from Ireland here in the Bahamas, and many of the families came from Ireland here, that I would extend to them what is in fact the National Day of Ireland, Happy St. Patrick's Day, to those Bahamians of Irish descent. Secondly, in this kind of startup, I wish to extend to the family of Ed Armbrister, the late now Ed Armbrister, condolences on the passing of, I understand, the winner of 2 championship rings with the Cincinnati Reds in 1975 and 1976. This is a major accomplishment. Perhaps he's the only Bahamian who's actually, in fact, accomplished that for baseball. I stand to be corrected, but certainly the first. Just remembering as a younger man, the sense of pride, particularly the 1975 game, where there was this controversial call where he was sliding home. There was a collision and the umpire didn't call a fault. And so there was a big argument afterwards about whether that actually caused Cincinnati to win the game. But the fact is, he was the centerpiece of that. And, all of us were cheering as he was on television during that game. There's always this argument, Madam President, about what do we do when people excel to this extent after their careers are over. I know that, for example, Chris Brown is struggling with this as he works as a coach in the U.S., and Derek Atkins is also successful as a coach in the U.S. But somehow we always think that the country doesn't quite do justice to what people have done during their lifetimes. And I just say that it is extraordinary the day that those 4 young men won the gold medal in London, to watch the impact that had on the younger men and boys at that time, that they could say, I can be on the world stage too. You and your 2 legs, I can be on the world stage too. Okay. So I want to pay tribute, therefore, to Ed Armbruster on his passing, and to extend to him, to his family, that is, our condolences for all that he, on his passing, for all that he did for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to make us the proud nation that we are. And may he rest in peace. More substantively to this matter before us. I've teased my friend opposite that he is the most credible spokesman that the FNM has. The most credible, the Minister of State for Finance. He can sing a song with a great melody. I mean, yeah. I mean, he's got you going. You know, it reminds me of my late friend Nico Grant, who's an F&M supporter in Grand Bahama. I'm sorry, not Nico, sorry. Oh, no, sorry. Nico, sorry, man. I mean, oh, Lord. Junior Grant from 8 Mile Rock, the late Junior Grant. And he and I would be sitting around at breakfast in Grand Bahama all the time. Brian Seymour was just reminding me about this. And he would say, you know, I better get up from this table now, because before I do foolishness and change my opinions about the F&M, because Fred is singing this song, I better get up and go. You know? So every time the minister gets up, I say, you know, I better clog my ears. Because if I listen to this, I might actually believe him. You know, but he reminded me that when there's a group of anthropologists who came down here in the early 20th century, and they did a collection called Folk Tales of Andros. They went all through Andros and recorded these folk tales. And one of the things they said is every time, the proper way in the Bahamas to start a fairy tale was to say this, you know? What is it? Start a fairy tale by saying, monkey chew tobacco and spit white line. And then you say, Ebo Ben, my story is end, right? So that's what I say. Monkey chew tobacco and spit white line. A nice fairy tale, Minister. You had me going. But I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe a word of it. There's a certain sense of a lack of reality, though. Not one word. And the story is end, yeah. This is my story, man. So I got up at the end of the minister's debate yesterday, the Minister of Labor. And I was just having him on, you know, and asking him, well, here you are, repeating all these amazing things that the government is alleged to have done in labor and transport and local government and all the rest of it. The prison officers are outside the Ministry of National Security trying to break down the gate. And, well, whatever, you know, this is my story. Why you all keep interfering in my story? Yes, right. You know, the police are brought out to move the rebels away and pack them back to Fox Hill, where they belong. Exactly, you know. ZNS walked out, right? And the Minister of Labor has nothing to say. As a matter of fact, what he did say was, I don't know nothing about it. I've been in the Senate all day. I said, well, that's true. He was in the Senate. And if he didn't know anything about it, he didn't know anything about it. But as I said to my colleagues afterwards, he must have been the only Bahamian who didn't know anything about it. You know? Oh, you could be all day, all day. Amazing. So I only say there's an air of unreality about this all. And, you know, buying the hotel, $150 million later and counting. No, I understand. I understand. Be your time. And what I said was, I understand now why the New Zealanders have in their constitution a 3-year term instead of a 5-year term. Because, you know, after year 3, you really get tired. And people stop listening to you. You know, ain't nobody listening to this. It's just, yeah, the minister is sounding good, and I like what you say. But, you know, people have tuned out. And time to go to the country. So the reality on the ground, Madam President, is that what the Free National Movement faced is something which they have to, as the lawyers say, in the eggshell rule, you have to take it as you find it. So they came to office. And since they've been in office, there's been Dorian, there's been the pandemic, and these are the three. Okay, so you got 3 things that you're hanging your hat on to say, this is why we are where we are, and help us out, because if this didn't happen, we would have done well. But I remember, your former, now Minister of Finance, who got up in his first statement on finance and said that, well, he said a lot of political things. PLP did this, PLP did that, and, you know, we're so horrible, and we're going to pay all the bills, and we're going to borrow all this money because of the PLP. And we're going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread because we're going to cut the deficit, and we're going to cut the national debt, and we're going to pay all the bills and all of that. So that was his first speech. Now, hidden in the first speech, though, that was the political side, was the technical people wrote what actually happened. And the technical people said in the speech, now he said both things. He said his political stuff, then he said his technical stuff. The technical stuff, which is the truth, was the deficit was headed toward in the right direction. The only issue was the country had Hurricane Matthew. So now, when I hear the ministers collectively now say, you know, we would have been going in the right direction, but for Dorian and but for the pandemic. Sounds like the same song to me. Don't sound like any different song to me. Sounds like the same song. And so I say you have to take it as you find it. If you've been dealt with a bad hand, you just have to take it that that's the bad hand you've got. And don't be crying because you had a bad hand. And the question is whether Bahamian people will judge whether with that bad hand you did the job that you were supposed to be able to do. And from what we see, you know, I just walked out of here about 2 hours ago. I step outside on the streets. It has become a constant issue. I have no money. I've been put out of my house. My children were sleeping in a car. This is a constant story. That's the reality on the ground. And I spend, as a public official, having to supplement the government's efforts at welfare. I understand, but it's your government. It's your government, not mine. And you're patting yourselves on the back saying you do a good job. Well, you'll make that case. You'll make that case. I want to speak up for 4 workers at the Fox Hill Community Center. This is a vexing problem. The Attorney General, in the early stages of the term, assisted in trying to resolve this matter with the board of the community center. But we're here again. So 3 weeks ago, I believe, letters were issued to 4 or 3 members of the staff of the community center, telling them their contracts had come to an end and therefore they're supposed to stop work. And so these 3 people, minimum wage jobs, gone. And it says it has to go back to cabinet for the cabinet to determine whether the things are going to be renewed. I thought there was a general agreement that as part of the Citizen Security Initiative, these people were supposed to be perpetual employees of the community center, supported in that initiative by the government. But now they're without work. And I would like somebody, if they can, look into that. I'm also interested, as a general point, in the question of the digitization or digitalization, I don't know which word is correct, of the Bahamas. And through the minister's speech, intervention, he referred many times to online platforms and how you can do all of these things online. Clearly, that's the direction the world is going into. I am a resistor of all of this stuff because I don't want people knowing my business. And this becomes a difficult problem in a small society. You know, you go to, it's interesting doing a readout when you get these things back from the credit card or the debit card company. You know, you've been to Super Value, you've been here, you've been to the drugstore, all of that. You know, I don't think any of that should be anybody's business, but it's recorded in this map, in this era now. But the more important point is, when I go to Grand Bahama, in the middle of every call, whether using the network, the phone network, or whether using the data network, dropped calls, dropped data. Sometimes you have to wait 2 and 3 minutes for it to come back up. Fine, I say, and here in New Providence. So all I say is one day. Yeah, well, fine. I mean, one day, you know, you go to the ATM and it keeps spinning. You know, so that now means when we go to the central bank is saying it's going to go to digital currency and all this digital stuff. You know, nothing, in my view, beats cold hard cash. It's the greatest invention of mankind. You know, greatest invention of mankind because it's easy to use and no issues. So that's my feeling on that. And I mentioned that because within the last couple of weeks, there was a statement by the now CEO of PTC, a man named Andre Foster, his name is. The first time I've seen the telephone companies actually address the question of 5G and what they're going to do. Now, my feeling is, and this is the suggestion to my own party, is that because these telephone companies do not seem, he says 5G will come in 22 or 23. That's what he says. Don't seem to be interested in this. I don't know how you're going to build a digital economy unless you improve this service. My view is, fine, that's fine. My view is that the Bahamas government ought to form a public corporation and do from island to island within islands a complete fiber network to digitize this country, which we will own. And the phone companies can take it off us if they want, but they clearly, Madam President, do not, in my view, have the national interest of this country. What they're doing is selling cell phones. You know, the more cell phones you sell and extracting profits and fancy ads and all the rest of it, but national development cannot move forward, in my view, unless there's a proper digital platform and infrastructure for the Bahamas. And I'd like to advocate that. Similarly, Madam President, one of the points I wanted to make about the public procurement bill, the Americans have something in their public policy which is called affirmative action. I did not appreciate till my last term as a minister the extent to which businesses in this country depend on the government for their success as a business. I was Minister of Immigration, and printing was a big function of the Department of Immigration. And so printers would be constantly making approaches about getting business from the Department of Immigration for printing. And this is replicated across the country. Of course, if you leave things as they are, undisturbed, the same group of people will always be getting contracts all the time. So new people would never get an opportunity to break through. And that is one of the, just going on the stump in this present set of circumstances, that's one of the major requests that people under 25 have. How can I get access? How can I break it? So my concern about the public procurement bill is, would this bill prevent the government from saying this person, that person, the next person? We need as a class to help lift a particular class of people.
Okay. No, there are no provisions in the bill which prevent that. And in fact, there are special provisions in the bill dealing with, you can issue invitations to bid, etc. And there are also provisions that allow you to carve out preferential areas where you will ensure domestic preference. Okay, so if you have an international bid, even you may also invoke these provisions. An international bid being a bid in which there's international money or whatever, you can still carve out a certain amount of preference. There is nothing in this bill that prevents persons being, in a sense, graduated up to the levels where they can self-generate their own business by experience. The bill allows for people to be invited to bring forward tenders. It's in the bill. You have pre-qualifications, but you also have in the bill powers to invite specific persons to tender. Section 43, invitations to bid. Okay, and there are. I'll find this section for you. There's a section that allows, as I said, the carving out, if you will, of areas of preferential bidders. Okay, not individuals, not my buddies, but classes and generic preferences.
Okay, so that, yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'll be done. Yeah, I'll be done. Yeah, no issue.
Oh, domestic preferences is called.
Yeah.
Section 46.
Right.
It's dealing with domestic preferences. So even, whatever the bid is, you may determine only Bahamians can bid on this. Thank you.
So when I may be a bit late coming back from lunch, but I hope at the committal stage we can go over those provisions, because my concern about the final concern I have with regard again to this public procurement bill, and this is about privacy issues again. In a small country, someone gets a $20 million contract. Senator Knowles gets a $20 million contract, and everybody believes, well, that's precisely it, because everybody believes now Senator Knowles is swimming in
May I
money.
just at this moment, Ray, move that the business of the Senate continue beyond 1 p.m. Thank you. Aye.
Right. So I was saying this question of, so everybody says, Senator Knowles is now rich and she's got a lot of money, and becomes, just using her as an example, if you don't mind, the person becomes a target because people have this impression that you have all this money. Never mind the fact that, most contracts, what do they have? Maybe 15% is yours in the profit?
Yeah.
Maybe. So I'm just wondering again, and some contractors have expressed this to us, whether or not this bill will invite that problem by the greatest scrutiny, because I understand there's certain publication requirements which come with this, and whether or not this is something Parliament may have to look at again to protect this kind of, it's an actual security issue. The Europeans have this issue with us about transparency and openness about people in their accounts. But I keep telling people there are reasons for privacy. One of the reasons is, In Italy, remember in the 1970s, rich people were going around dressed in dungarees and T-shirts.
Bear in mind there is no requirement except in a very limited case for the disclosure of the beneficial ownership of a company that has won a bid. Okay, the listing that is required every year on the government portal for the Ministry of Finance is limited to the entities that have gotten contracts. Okay, is a very limited circumstance. I think it's to do with some international bidding, that the beneficial ownership of the entities that win the bid have to be disclosed, but that is for the international entity to be able to say they know who the beneficial owners are. Okay, and the only area where the actual beneficial ownership of any bidding entity is of any relevance in this whole act is for the tender committee or the procurement unit to be able to satisfy itself that the different bidders aren't really one person controlling two entities, thereby distorting the bidding process. And that's the only basis on which the tenders committee or the procuring unit can look behind the corporate veil to assure itself that there's no distortion in the bidding process.
So again, at the committal stage, I hope we can delineate that so that this can allay the fears of those who are concerned about this as an issue. I would like to address the question of the vaccine since it was raised on the, I am not a vaccine denier. And I think vaccines are valuable for health and people should, given the best science, take the vaccine. I will do it myself. And Dr. Darwin has said he will do it. The leader has said he will do it. Our leader said he will do it. Yes, you indicated that you did, right? And I say this because I was just reading that the Attorney General had just forwarded to me the decision by the EU with regard to the specific vaccine which is supplied here to the Bahamas, the AstraZeneca vaccine, which the EU now says their concerns have been allayed. But I wanted to, I've had this conversation with many people, particularly people who are under 25, who have joined this anti-vaccine sort of bandwagon. And I said to them that one of the reasons why I am 68 today and they are 25 today is because of vaccines which were invented post the Second World War.
Wow.
As a matter of routine, polio, smallpox, measles, mumps, rubella. Right. I've since that as an adult, I've had as I'm over 60, I have the pneumonia 13, pneumonia 23, and the shot which also deals with shingles. So it's worked as far as I can tell. Right. It's knock on wood. And so I'm saying to them, you reach that age because the diseases that would have killed my parents and some of us were obviated by vaccines. They didn't know it. They grew up accepting it. You know, when the summertime came when I was a child, everybody was deathly afraid of polio. Yep. Deathly afraid of it. And now that's largely eliminated. There's no whooping cough. There's no tetanus.
Very little measles.
All mainly eliminated.
Very little. Yeah.
And this crank kook science that's being pushed by Robert Kennedy Jr. I see where Instagram has now banned him from being on their site for. And the ironic thing in the news article they published today was that he himself says while he's parroting this anti-vaccine science, he has made sure all of his children are vaccinated. I mean, it's just extraordinary. A man who's as rich as Croesus and therefore can afford any health care is parroting this kind of stuff. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to impose a choice on anybody. These are entirely personal choices. And I know there's some religions, I believe, who say as a matter of faith, they do not believe in vaccines. We'll find that's a matter of faith. But as a public health issue, I think it is important for us to address this as one of the tools in the arsenal to open up this economy, because that is the only way, ultimately, it seems to me, this financial quagmire that we're in will ultimately be resolved, is if this economy is open and there's a balance between the public health measures and opening up the economy. And so I just wanted to make that clear. Some people said that our position was not clear. All of us intend to take the vaccine. I hope that that demonstrates the point. And as I said, they found in the folktales of Andros that used to start by saying, once upon a time, at a very good time, Marky Chew Tobacco, spit white line. Ebo Ben, my story is end. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, because of the importance of one point raised, it can't be allowed to simmer without some form of response to set the record straight. I was charged by Cabinet with speaking as the minister responsible for IRCA, who's the regulator of the communications sector, charged to approach the communications giants in the country and to have some discussions on matters of interest that were in the minds of Cabinet at the time. And one of the issues raised was the question of devising a strategy for the implementation of 5G within our lifetimes and as soon as practicable. I asked the agencies, the two giants, to either prepare separate or a collaborative report. Well, being in a state of competition, they went so far and combined up to a certain point their recommendations, and then for competitive reasons, they each went and did other things in two separate reports that have now been received, turned over to the appropriate minister for implementation, being the minister for ICT. I was the minister for the regulator and had to put the lions in the cage, if you will. Having done that, those reports were, as soon as received, turned over to the minister, and I'm sure that he will be able to in short order, I believe he's speaking tomorrow, give a more full presentation. But the government of the Bahamas, I assure you now, has already weighed in with our private sector's partners, and they have fully embraced the challenge to devise plans, which the honorable minister, you say is the best of the lot, and I agree he is one of the best of all of us, will no doubt push through towards an early conclusion. And I leave any further announcements on developments to the distinguished Minister of State for Finance. Thank you, Madam President. But let me assure the Bahamian people, 5G is coming. Thank you.
And so is Christmas.
That's right, and both arrive, and both come. And therefore, and so will 5G. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I now beg leave to move that the Senate, the business of the Senate on its rising be suspended for 1 hour till 2:10 p.m. this afternoon. If I may obtain a seconder. I